Close your eyes for a moment. You cannot see your thoughts, yet you know they exist. You cannot see love, yet you feel its power. You cannot see your soul, yet it defines who you are. So today, we ask a question that echoes in many hearts, sometimes spoken aloud, sometimes whispered in silence. How can God exist if he is uncreated? And how can we feel his existence if we cannot see him? This is not a question of rebellion. It is a question of reflection, and sincere questions, when asked humbly, do not distance us from truth. They lead us closer to it. The question of the uncreated is one of the deepest questions the human mind can ask. It often arises from sincerity, curiosity, and a genuine desire to understand reality. When a person asks if God exists and everything has a creator, then who created God? They are not necessarily rejecting faith. In many cases, they are simply trying to make sense of existence using the tools they know: logic, cause and effect, and observation of the physical world. However, to understand this question properly, we must first recognize the limits of those tools and where they apply. Everything we experience in our daily lives is created. Every object we see, every sound we hear, every living being we interact with has a beginning and an end. We are born, we grow, we age, and we die. Buildings are constructed, machines are manufactured, and even mountains slowly erode over time. From childhood, we are trained to associate existence with beginnings. Because of this, the human mind naturally assumes that anything that exists must have come from something else. This assumption works perfectly within the universe, but it does not automatically apply beyond it. When we say God is uncreated, we are not making an illogical claim. We are making a claim that God is fundamentally different from creation. God is not part of the universe, not subject to its laws, and not bound by the dimensions of time and space. Time itself is a created thing. Before the universe existed, time as we know it did not exist. Therefore, asking when God was created already assumes the existence of time, which is itself part of creation. God is not within time, rather, time exists by his will. To understand this, consider the difference between dependent and independent existence. Everything in the universe is dependent. We depend on air to breathe, food to survive, and countless conditions to continue existing. Remove one essential factor and life collapses. Even the universe itself is dependent. It relies on precise laws, constants, and balance to continue existing. If these values were even slightly altered, the universe as we know it would not exist. Dependency points to something beyond itself, something that does not rely on anything else. An uncreated being, by definition, must be independent. If God depended on something else for his existence, then he would not be the ultimate reality. He would simply be another created being in a chain of causes. But logic tells us that an infinite chain of dependent causes cannot explain existence. If everything depended on something before it, and there was no starting point, nothing would exist at all. For existence to make sense, there must be a first reality, one that does not depend on anything else. That reality is what we mean when we speak of God. Some may say, why can't the universe itself be uncreated? This question has been explored by scientists and philosophers alike. The universe is constantly changing. It is expanding, evolving, and subject to entropy. Anything that changes cannot be eternal in the absolute sense, because change implies movement from one state to another. Modern science itself supports the idea that the universe had a beginning. A beginning implies a cause, and that cause must be beyond the universe, not limited by its rules. The concept of an uncreated God does not contradict reason, it completes it. Reason demands an explanation for existence. Reason cannot accept that something came from absolute nothingness without cause. When we say God is uncreated, we are saying that he is the necessary existence, the one whose existence is not optional, not borrowed, and not contingent. Everything else could have not existed. God alone must exist. The difficulty many people face with this concept is that the human mind is accustomed to imagining things. We imagine shapes, locations, and forms. But God is not an object to be imagined. The moment we imagine God as a physical entity, we reduce him to creation. God's reality is not grasped by imagination, but by understanding. Just as we accept the existence of abstract realities like numbers, laws of logic, and consciousness without physically seeing them, we can understand the existence of God without visualizing him. Another important point is that the question, who created God, assumes that being uncreated is somehow a flaw. In reality, it is a necessary attribute of divinity. If God were created, then he would need a creator. That creator would then be more worthy of being called God. This would continue endlessly unless we accept one uncreated source. Stopping at an uncreated God is not arbitrary, it is logically necessary. Without it, existence itself becomes impossible to explain. Human beings often struggle with this idea because we compare God to ourselves. We think in terms of age, origin, and sequence. But God is not a larger version of a human being. He is not an old being sitting somewhere in the universe. He is the one who brought the universe into existence. Just as the author of a book is not a character inside the story, God is not contained within creation. He is distinct from it, yet fully aware of it. The question of the uncreated also touches something deeper within the human soul, the discomfort with absolute dependence. To accept an uncreated God is to accept that we are not self-sufficient. It means recognizing that our existence is not random, not self-generated, and not under our ultimate control. For some, this realization is unsettling. For others, it is liberating. It frees a person from the burden of thinking that everything rests on their own shoulders. When we reflect honestly, we realize that our lives are full of things we did not choose. We did not choose our parents, our place of birth, our time in history, or the basic structure of the world. These realities were given to us. The idea of an uncreated God explains why there is order behind these gifts rather than chaos. The concept of the uncreated also preserves meaning. If everything were the result of blind chance, then purpose would be an illusion. Morality would be subjective and truth would be temporary. But the existence of an uncreated, eternal source grounds meaning, truth, and purpose beyond human opinion. It gives weight to justice, value to life, and direction to existence. Some people ask why God does not explain himself in a way that removes all doubt. But certainty imposed is not faith, it is compulsion. God gives enough signs for the sincere seeker, and enough ambiguity for the arrogant to turn away. The concept of the uncreated invites humility. It asks the human being to accept that not everything can be reduced to physical measurement. When the mind reflects deeply, it begins to see that the idea of an uncreated God is not strange at all. What is strange is the idea that everything could exist without an ultimate foundation. What is strange is to believe that laws exist without a law, giver, order without intelligence, and existence without necessity. Understanding the uncreated is not about winning an argument. It is about recognizing reality. It is about realizing that behind all dependent things stands one who depends on nothing. One who does not age, does not weaken, does not need rest, and does not fear non-existence. A reality that simply is, and when a person truly grasps this, even partially, it changes how they see themselves. Life no longer feels accidental. Struggles no longer feel meaningless. Existence itself becomes a sign pointing beyond itself to the uncreated source from which everything flows. Human perception is a remarkable gift, yet it is profoundly limited. We often assume that what we can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell represents the full scope of reality. From an early age, we are trained to trust our senses, and rightly so, because they help us navigate the world and survive within it. However, the mistake many people make is turning sensory experience into the ultimate judge of what is real. When this happens, anything beyond direct perception is dismissed as imaginary or unreal, even though logic, science, and daily experience all demonstrate that reality extends far beyond what our senses can grasp. The human eye, for example, can only see a tiny portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. There are colors we cannot see, waves we cannot detect, and energies passing through our bodies every moment without our awareness. Radio waves, X-rays, and ultraviolet light were unknown to humanity for most of history, yet they existed long before we discovered them. Their invisibility did not negate their reality. It only highlighted the limitations of human perception. The universe did not wait for us to perceive it before functioning exactly as it always had. The same applies to sound. The human ear can detect only a narrow range of frequencies. There are sounds that animals hear which we never will. Entire forms of communication occur in the natural world beyond our auditory reach. If perception were the measure of existence, we would have to deny the reality of these sounds simply because we cannot hear them. But reason tells us that the absence of perception is not evidence of absence. Even within our own bodies, there are realities we cannot directly sense. We cannot feel our blood flowing through our veins, yet it sustains us every second. We cannot perceive the firing of neurons in our brains, yet they shape our thoughts, emotions, and decisions. We cannot see consciousness, but we experience its effects continuously. The mind itself is invisible, yet no sane person would deny its existence. Human perception is also shaped by interpretation. Two people can witness the same event and walk away with completely different understandings of what occurred. Our emotions, experiences, and expectations influence how we perceive reality. Fear can make harmless shadows appear threatening. Love can make flaws seem beautiful. This shows that perception is not a neutral mirror of reality, but a filter through which reality passes. Time further exposes our limitations. We experience time in one direction, moment by moment, unable to return to the past or see the future. Yet we know that the past existed even though it is no longer perceptible, and we plan for a future we cannot yet perceive. Much of our lives is built on trust in what we cannot currently see. Memory, anticipation, and expectation all rely on realities beyond present perception. Science itself is a testament to the limits of human senses. Instruments are created precisely because our natural abilities are insufficient. Telescopes allow us to see galaxies billions of light years away. Microscopes reveal entire worlds within a drop of water. Sensors detect particles so small and fleeting that they cannot be directly observed. These tools do not create reality, they uncover what was already there. Every scientific advancement is, in essence, a confession that human perception alone is inadequate. Despite this, some people insist that if something cannot be perceived by the senses, it cannot exist. This assumption is not scientific, it is philosophical, it is a choice, not a conclusion. Science does not claim that reality is limited to what we can perceive. On the contrary, it continually expands our understanding of what lies beyond our natural reach. The limits of human perception become even clearer when we consider abstract realities. Justice cannot be seen, but societies are built around it. Love cannot be weighed, yet it drives human behavior more powerfully than many physical forces. Numbers, logic, and moral values have no physical form, yet they shape civilizations. Their existence is understood through their effects, not through sensory observation. When it comes to understanding God, these limitations are often forgotten. People ask to see God as if visual confirmation were the only valid form of knowledge, but this demand is inconsistent with how we accept other truths. We do not demand to see the mind before believing in thought, nor do we require physical proof of meaning before living our lives by it. We recognize that some realities are known indirectly, through signs, effects, and inner awareness. Human perception is also limited by scale. The universe is unimaginably vast, and our place within it is tiny. There are regions of space so distant that their light has not yet reached us. Does that mean they do not exist? Of course not. Our inability to perceive something due to distance does not erase its reality. In the same way, the inability to perceive God through the senses does not negate his existence. It simply reflects our finite position. There is also the limitation of language. Words are tools designed to describe created experiences. When we try to speak about realities beyond creation, language struggles. We rely on analogy, metaphor, and approximation. This is why discussions about God often feel inadequate. It is not because God is unclear, but because our tools for understanding are limited. Just as a child cannot fully grasp complex ideas beyond their development, the human mind has boundaries it cannot cross on its own. Another aspect of limited perception is arrogance. When human beings assume that their current understanding is complete, they close themselves off from truth. History is filled with examples of ideas once considered impossible that later became accepted facts. Humility is essential for learning. Recognizing the limits of perception is not a weakness, it is the beginning of wisdom. The heart, as opposed to the senses, plays a unique role in perception. There are moments in life when a person feels certainty without physical evidence, moments of clarity, peace, or moral conviction that cannot be explained purely in material terms. These experiences do not contradict reason, they complement it. They point to a layer of reality that operates beyond sight and sound. When people dismiss belief in God because they cannot perceive Him, they are unknowingly applying a standard they do not use elsewhere. Their lives are filled with trust in things unseen. They rely on systems they do not fully understand, forces they cannot directly observe, and meanings they cannot physically touch. To single out belief in God as irrational on this basis alone is inconsistent. Recognizing the limits of human perception invites humility and openness. It reminds us that reality is richer and deeper than our immediate experience. It encourages us to seek understanding rather than demand control. The universe is not obligated to conform to the boundaries of our senses, and truth is not diminished by our inability to grasp it fully. When we accept that our perception is limited, the question is no longer, "Why can't I see God?" but rather, "Why do I assume that seeing is the only way to know?" This shift in perspective opens the door to reflection, sincerity, and deeper awareness. It allows the human being to approach existence not with arrogance, but with wonder, recognizing that beyond what is seen lies a reality far greater than what the eye can ever capture. When we look at creation with honesty and reflection, it becomes difficult to ignore the signs that point beyond it. The world around us is not random noise or meaningless motion. It is structured, balanced, and governed by precise laws. From the smallest particles to the vastness of the cosmos, everything operates within an astonishing system of order. This order invites a question far more profound than mere curiosity. How did all of this come to be, and why does it function so perfectly? The idea that creation points to a creator is not a retreat from reason. It is a conclusion that reason naturally reaches when it is allowed to reflect deeply. Consider the universe itself. It is vast beyond imagination, yet it operates with remarkable consistency. The same physical laws apply in distant galaxies as they do on Earth. Gravity does not change its behavior randomly, nor do the fundamental constants of nature shift unpredictably. If these constants were even slightly different, stars would not form, atoms would not hold together, and life would be impossible. Such fine-tuning is not easily dismissed as coincidence. Chance does not produce precision on this scale. Order of this magnitude points to intention. When we encounter order in our daily lives, we instinctively look for a cause. If we walk into a room and see furniture arranged neatly, we do not assume the wind organized it. If we find a complex machine functioning smoothly, we do not believe it assembled itself by accident. The more complex and purposeful something is, the more certain we are that intelligence lies behind it. Creation is the most complex system known, yet some hesitate to apply the same logic to it. This hesitation often arises not from reason, but from resistance to what that reasoning implies. The earth itself is a sign. It sits at a precise distance from the sun, allowing water to exist in liquid form. Its atmosphere protects life while allowing light and heat to reach the surface. Its magnetic field shields it from harmful radiation. The balance required for life is so delicate that even minor changes would render the planet uninhabitable. These conditions did not come together through blind chaos. They reflect a harmony that suggests careful planning. Life, in particular, is a powerful sign. The human body is an intricate system of interdependent parts, each performing a specific function. The heart pumps blood without rest, the lungs exchange gases with perfect timing, and the brain processes vast amounts of information every second. Cells operate like miniature factories, carrying out complex tasks with precision. DNA contains detailed instructions that guide development and repair. Information of this kind does not arise without intelligence. Codes require a coder, instructions require an author. Some argue that natural processes explain all of this, but natural processes themselves require explanation. Laws do not create themselves. Systems do not define their own rules. The fact that the universe follows laws rather than chaos is itself a sign. Why does anything obey anything at all? Why is there consistency rather than randomness? Science describes how things work, but it does not answer why there is something rather than nothing. The existence of laws points to a lawgiver. Even randomness operates within boundaries. Mutations, often cited as drivers of biological change, do not occur in a vacuum. They happen within a system already governed by rules that allow life to persist. Randomness alone cannot account for the origin of those systems. It can only operate after the framework is already in place. To credit randomness with creating the framework itself is to stretch the concept beyond reason. Human consciousness adds another layer to this reflection. We are not merely biological machines responding to stimuli. We think, reflect, imagine, and ask questions about our own existence. We possess moral awareness, a sense of right and wrong that transcends survival. We seek meaning, purpose, and justice. These qualities are difficult to reduce to chemical reactions alone. Matter can explain structure, but it struggles to explain meaning. The presence of consciousness within creation points to a source of consciousness beyond it. Throughout history, people across cultures and civilizations have looked at the world and reached similar conclusions. They differed in language and tradition, but they shared the intuition that existence is not self-explanatory. This widespread recognition is not proof on its own, but it is significant. It suggests that the idea of a creator is not an invention of ignorance, but a natural response to reflection. Some claim that given enough time, anything is possible. But time does not create order by itself. Time can change things, wear them down, or allow processes to unfold, but it does not provide direction or purpose. Without guidance, time leads to disorder, not increasing complexity. The consistent trend in closed systems is decay, not refinement. The existence of increasing complexity within creation suggests guidance rather than accident. The night sky offers another reminder. Stars are born, live, and die according to precise processes. Galaxies maintain their structures over unimaginable spans of time. Light travels across vast distances to reach us, carrying information about events that occurred billions of years ago. The universe is not silent. It is communicating its history and structure. To observe this and conclude that it all happened without reason requires more faith than accepting that there is intention behind it. Creation also points to a creator through its beauty. Beauty is not necessary for survival, yet it is everywhere. The symmetry of flowers, the colors of the sky, the patterns of snowflakes, and the melodies of nature all evoke awe. Beauty speaks to something deeper than function. It suggests that creation is not merely efficient, but expressive. It resonates with the human soul in a way that goes beyond utility. When people resist the idea that creation points to a creator, it is often because of what that conclusion demands. A creator implies accountability, purpose, and meaning beyond personal preference. Accepting a creator challenges the notion that life is entirely self-directed, but discomfort does not negate truth. Reality is not shaped by what we find convenient. The signs of a creator are not hidden in obscure places. They are evident in the ordinary and the extraordinary alike. In the rising of the sun, in the beating of the heart, in the cycle of life and death, creation continually points beyond itself. It does not claim to be self-sufficient. It invites reflection. When a person looks at creation without prejudice, they begin to see it not as a collection of accidents, but as a coherent whole. Every part fits within a larger system, and every system contributes to a greater balance. This interconnectedness is not accidental. It reflects unity of purpose. Creation does not speak in words, but it communicates through order, precision, and meaning. It does not force belief, but it offers signs to those willing to observe. The question is not whether creation points to a creator, but whether we are willing to follow where those signs lead. Many people assume that the strongest form of belief is one that is based on sight. They feel that if something cannot be seen with the eyes, it cannot be fully known or truly real. Yet human experience repeatedly proves that some of the most powerful and undeniable realities in life are not seen, but felt, recognized, and understood through their effects. Feeling God through signs rather than sight follows this same pattern. It is not a weakness of faith, but a deeper and more meaningful way of knowing. Sight is limited to the physical world. It requires light, distance, and form. God, however, is not a physical object occupying space, nor is he confined to shape or direction. Expecting to see God with the eyes is to misunderstand his nature. Just as the mind cannot be seen and the soul cannot be touched, God is known through what he does, not through physical appearance. The absence of sight does not imply absence of presence. Throughout life, people experience moments that cannot be fully explained by material causes alone. A person may find peace in the middle of chaos, strength in moments of weakness, or clarity when confusion should have overwhelmed them. These experiences often arrive unexpectedly, without visible triggers, yet they leave a deep and lasting impact. They act as signs, pointing to a reality beyond the immediate and the visible. One of the clearest signs through which people feel God is guidance. Many individuals recall moments when they were about to make a decision that could have led to harm, only to feel an inner hesitation that redirected them. Later, they realize how close they were to disaster. This quiet steering of the heart is not dramatic or loud, yet it is deeply personal. It does not force, but gently guides. Such experiences are not proof in the scientific sense, but they are powerful confirmations for those who experience them. Another sign is the transformation of the heart. There are people who once lived in despair, anger, or emptiness, yet through turning sincerely toward God, they find peace and purpose. Their circumstances may not change immediately, but their inner world does. This inner shift cannot be measured or photographed, yet it is real. It reshapes priorities, heals emotional wounds, and restores hope. No physical object can produce such comprehensive change on its own. Nature itself is a sign that allows people to feel God's presence. Standing beneath a vast sky, watching the ocean stretch endlessly, or witnessing the quiet growth of a seed into a tree often evokes a sense of awe. This feeling is more than admiration, it is recognition. The heart senses that this order and beauty are not accidental. In those moments, people feel small yet deeply connected. That connection is not to nature alone, but to the one who brought it into being. Prayer is another way people feel God without seeing him. When a person prays sincerely, they are not speaking into emptiness. They often feel heard even before answers arrive. Sometimes the answer comes as relief. Sometimes it comes as patience. Sometimes it comes as strength to endure rather than immediate change. These responses are subtle yet consistent. Over time, they build a relationship based not on sight, but on trust and experience. There are also signs in timing. Events unfold in ways that, when reflected upon later, reveal wisdom beyond human planning. Doors close that once seemed essential, only for better opportunities to appear. Hardships shape character, and delays protect from harm not yet understood. When people look back, they often recognize patterns that were invisible in the moment. This sense of purposeful unfolding allows them to feel that their lives are not random, but guided. The human conscience is another sign. The innate sense of right and wrong is not something taught entirely by society. Even in isolation, people feel guilt when they harm others and satisfaction when they act with kindness. This moral awareness feels like an inner witness, reminding the soul of higher standards. Feeling discomfort after wrongdoing and peace after sincerity is a sign that the heart is responding to something greater than social conditioning. Feeling God through signs also requires stillness. In a world filled with noise, distractions, and constant stimulation, subtle signs are easily overlooked. When the heart is constantly occupied, it becomes numb. But when a person slows down, reflects, and creates space for silence, awareness increases. In that quiet, signs become clearer, thoughts become more focused, intentions become sincere, and the heart becomes receptive. Another powerful sign is resilience during hardship. There are people who face loss, illness, or injustice, yet remain hopeful and composed. This strength does not come from denial, but from trust. It is not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning. Feeling supported during suffering, even when answers are not immediate, allows people to endure what would otherwise break them. Community and compassion also serve as signs. Acts of kindness, forgiveness, and selflessness reflect qualities that go beyond survival instincts. When people witness genuine goodness, it touches something deep within them. It feels familiar, as if reminding the soul of its origin. This recognition is another way people feel God's presence, through the behavior of those who embody mercy and sincerity. Some people struggle to feel God because they are searching in the wrong way. They look for dramatic signs while overlooking the quiet ones. They demand certainty while ignoring consistency. Feeling God is not about overwhelming displays, it is about attentiveness. It is about recognizing patterns of care, moments of guidance, and inner peace that persist over time. Doubt itself can be a sign. The desire to understand, to seek truth, and to ask meaningful questions reflects a deeper awareness. A person who is indifferent rarely searches. The heart that questions is often closer to feeling God than the heart that is distracted. Sincere searching opens the door to recognition. Feeling God through signs does not mean life becomes free of difficulty. Challenges remain and pain still exists, but the presence of signs changes how those challenges are faced. Hardship becomes a test rather than a punishment. Waiting becomes a form of growth rather than frustration. The heart learns to trust even when the eyes cannot see the path ahead. Over time, these signs accumulate. Individually, they may seem small. Together, they form a pattern that becomes difficult to ignore. The person begins to feel accompanied rather than alone, guided rather than lost. This feeling does not depend on constant emotional highs. It is steady, quiet, and reassuring. Feeling God through signs rather than sight aligns with the nature of faith itself. Faith is not blindness, it is recognition without compulsion. It allows space for choice, sincerity, and growth. When belief is based on signs, it becomes deeply personal. It is not inherited, imposed, or superficial. It is lived, experienced, and felt. In this way, God is not distant or hidden. He is present in moments of clarity, in the calm after prayer, in the strength to forgive, and in the hope that refuses to fade. These are not illusions or coincidences. They are signs, constantly pointing to a reality that does not need to be seen to be known. Human beings often place great confidence in what they can see. Vision feels immediate and convincing, and the eyes seem to offer certainty. Yet history, experience, and reflection all show that sight is not the highest or most reliable form of knowing. There are realities that do not enter through the eyes, but are recognized somewhere deeper within the human being. The heart, in its spiritual and emotional sense, has an ability to perceive truths that the eyes cannot capture. This recognition is not imaginary or irrational. It is rooted in awareness, intuition, and inner understanding that go beyond physical perception. From early childhood, people learn that some of the most important aspects of life are invisible. Love cannot be seen, yet its presence is unmistakable. Trust has no shape, yet relationships collapse without it. Hope has no color, yet it carries people through the darkest moments. These realities are not accessed through sight, but through the heart. The heart recognizes them through experience, impact, and meaning rather than physical form. The eyes can only perceive surfaces. They observe appearances, shapes, and movements, but they cannot penetrate intention or essence. A smile may hide pain, and silence may conceal depth. The heart, however, senses what lies beneath. It detects sincerity or falsehood, peace or unrest, compassion or cruelty. This sensitivity is not perfect, but it demonstrates that human awareness operates on more than one level. In moments of deep reflection, people often realize that their strongest convictions were not formed through visual evidence. A person knows they are loved not because they see love, but because they feel it in consistent actions, care, and presence. A person knows something is wrong not because it looks wrong, but because the heart responds with discomfort. These responses arise from an inner faculty that processes meaning rather than images. This inner recognition becomes especially significant when people reflect on God. The inability to see God leads some to conclude that he cannot be known. But this conclusion assumes that sight is the only path to certainty. In reality, knowing God is more closely aligned with how we know love, meaning, and purpose. It is an awareness that grows through reflection, experience, and sincerity. The heart recognizes God through signs embedded in life itself. Moments of unexpected peace during hardship, sudden clarity after confusion, and strength that appears when one feels most weak all leave an impression deeper than sight. These experiences may not be dramatic, but they are personal and transformative. They settle in the heart, shaping belief in a way that no image could. The eyes may demand proof, but the heart responds to consistency. Over time, patterns emerge that suggest care, guidance, and wisdom. When prayers are answered in unexpected ways, when hardship leads to growth rather than destruction, and when patience produces outcomes that haste would have ruined, the heart begins to recognize a presence at work. This recognition is quiet but firm. Human beings also possess a moral awareness that the eyes cannot explain. The sense of right and wrong does not appear as a visible object. It is felt as conviction, guilt, or peace. When a person acts unjustly, the heart reacts even if no one else is watching. When a person acts sincerely, the heart feels light even if there is no applause. This moral compass operates independently of sight, pointing to values that transcend material benefit. The heart's ability to recognize truth is often most evident during moments of vulnerability. When distractions fade and defenses fall, people become more aware of their dependence, fragility, and need for meaning. In those moments, the heart becomes more receptive. It begins to ask questions not driven by pride, but by humility. This openness allows deeper recognition to occur. The eyes can be deceived. Illusions, mirages, and misinterpretations are proof that sight alone is not sufficient. History is filled with examples of people who saw something and misunderstood it completely. The heart, when purified from arrogance and distraction, can perceive what sight misses. It senses when something aligns with truth and when it does not, even if appearances suggest otherwise. Silence plays a crucial role in the heart's recognition. In a noisy world, the heart's voice is easily drowned out. Constant stimulation leaves little room for reflection. But when a person withdraws from noise, slows down, and reflects, the heart begins to speak more clearly. In that stillness, insights emerge that no amount of observation could provide. The heart also recognizes meaning in suffering in ways the eyes cannot. Pain appears pointless when viewed only through sight. Loss looks like absence, and delay looks like denial. But the heart, over time, often discovers wisdom hidden within hardship. What once seemed like an ending becomes a turning point. What felt like punishment reveals itself as preparation. This recognition is not immediate, but when it comes, it reshapes understanding. Another dimension of the heart's recognition is longing. Human beings carry an inner yearning for permanence, justice, and fulfillment that nothing in the physical world fully satisfies. No matter how much one sees or acquires, the longing remains. This longing is not accidental. It is a sign that the heart is oriented towards something beyond the visible. The eyes may be satisfied temporarily, but the heart seeks something lasting. Relationships also reveal the heart's unique vision. People often say they feel someone's presence even when they are not seen. A loved one's absence is felt more deeply than their physical outline. Memory, connection, and attachment exist beyond sight. These experiences show that the heart operates in a realm where distance and visibility are secondary. The heart recognizes sincerity. A few honest words can touch the heart more than elaborate displays. This sensitivity to authenticity cannot be explained by sight alone. It arises from an inner awareness that responds to truth. When people encounter genuine humility or compassion, they feel it immediately, even if nothing outward seems extraordinary. Recognizing what the eyes cannot also requires cleansing the heart from pride and distraction. Arrogance blinds the heart just as surely as darkness blinds the eyes. When a person assumes they already know everything, recognition becomes impossible. Humility, on the other hand, opens the heart. It allows learning, growth, and awareness. Over time, the heart builds certainty not through sudden visions, but through accumulated recognition. Each experience adds to an inner understanding that becomes difficult to dismiss. This certainty is calm, not loud. It does not demand constant reassurance. It simply knows. In this way, the heart becomes a witness. It testifies to truths that the eyes cannot capture. It recognizes presence without form, meaning without image, and guidance without direction. While sight informs us about the surface of the world, the heart connects us to its depth. Many people approach faith as if it were a formula, perform certain actions, say certain words, and arrive at guaranteed results. They expect belief to function like a mathematical equation where inputs always produce predictable outputs. When life does not unfold according to these expectations, disappointment follows, and faith is sometimes questioned or abandoned. This misunderstanding arises from viewing faith as a fixed destination rather than a living journey. In reality, faith unfolds gradually, shaped by experience, reflection, struggle, and growth. It is not static, and it is not uniform for every person. A journey implies movement. It involves progress, pauses, detours, and sometimes setbacks. Faith develops in much the same way. A person may begin with simple belief, encounter questions, face doubt, regain clarity, and emerge with deeper conviction. These stages are not signs of weakness, they are signs of engagement. A faith that has never been tested has never been truly explored. Struggle does not cancel belief, it refines it. If faith were a formula, then belief would be effortless and identical for everyone. But human beings are not identical. Each person carries unique experiences, wounds, fears, and hopes. Faith speaks to the individual heart, meeting it where it is. What strengthens one person may challenge another. What brings peace at one stage of life may raise questions at another. This variation does not indicate inconsistency in truth. It reflects diversity in human experience. The idea of faith as a journey also explains why certainty grows over time rather than appearing instantly. Just as trust between people develops through repeated interactions, faith deepens through lived experience. A person begins to recognize patterns of guidance, moments of protection, and instances of wisdom revealed only in hindsight. These experiences accumulate, shaping conviction slowly but firmly. Doubt often plays a misunderstood role in this journey. Many assume that doubt is the opposite of faith, but in reality, indifference is far more dangerous. Doubt indicates that a person is thinking, questioning, and seeking understanding. It shows that faith matters enough to be examined. Suppressing questions does not strengthen belief, it weakens it by leaving uncertainty unresolved. Honest questioning, approached with humility, becomes a bridge to deeper understanding. A formula promises control. A journey requires trust. Faith asks a person to accept that not everything will be immediately clear. Answers may come slowly, indirectly, or not in the form expected. This uncertainty can be uncomfortable, especially in a world that values instant results. Yet it is precisely this uncertainty that cultivates patience, humility, and reliance beyond oneself. Life experiences often reshape faith in unexpected ways. A person may feel closest to God during moments of hardship rather than ease. Pain strips away illusions of self-sufficiency and exposes deeper needs. In such moments, faith becomes less about explanation and more about endurance. It shifts from asking why to seeking how to remain grounded, how to grow, how to trust. If faith were merely a formula, suffering would have no place within it. Yet suffering is one of the most common contexts in which faith matures. It forces reflection, re-evaluation, and sincerity. It challenges superficial belief and invites depth. Many people testify that their most transformative spiritual moments occurred not during comfort, but during trial. Faith as a journey also acknowledges change. A person does not remain the same throughout life, and neither does their understanding. Early beliefs may be simple and unquestioned. Later, they may be examined, expanded, and internalized more deeply. This evolution does not mean earlier belief was false, it means it was incomplete. Growth requires movement beyond what is familiar. Community plays an important role in this journey. Walking alone can be difficult. Shared experiences, guidance, and support help sustain faith during difficult stretches. However, community does not replace personal responsibility. Each individual must walk their own path, make their own choices, and respond to their own questions. Faith cannot be borrowed or inherited indefinitely, it must be lived. The journey of faith also includes moments of silence. There are times when prayers seem unanswered and signs seem distant. These periods are often the most challenging. Yet silence does not equal absence. Just as seeds grow beneath the soil unseen, faith can develop in quiet, hidden ways. These moments test sincerity, asking whether belief depends on constant reassurance or can endure without it. A formula seeks certainty, a journey builds resilience. Over time, a person learns that faith is not about eliminating fear, but about facing it with courage. It is not about removing hardship, but about finding meaning within it. This shift transforms faith from a fragile expectation into a steady anchor. Another aspect of faith as a journey is learning to let go of comparison. People often measure their faith against others, assuming that confidence must look a certain way. Some express belief emotionally, others quietly. Some find clarity quickly, others gradually. Comparing paths leads to frustration and insecurity. A journey is personal, and its pace cannot be standardized. Faith also evolves through practice. Actions reinforce belief, and belief gives meaning to actions. Small, consistent efforts often shape faith more effectively than dramatic gestures. Over time, sincerity in daily choices builds integrity and trust. This gradual shaping reflects the nature of a journey where progress is measured in steps rather than leaps. Setbacks are inevitable. Moments of weakness, distraction, or neglect occur. Viewing faith as a formula turns setbacks into failures. Viewing faith as a journey reframes them as part of the process. A stumble does not erase distance already traveled. What matters is the willingness to continue. As the journey progresses, faith becomes less about external validation and more about inner alignment. A person begins to recognize peace not as the absence of problems, but as clarity of purpose. This peace does not depend on circumstances. It arises from trust developed over time. Ultimately, faith as a journey emphasizes relationship rather than transaction. It is not about fulfilling conditions to receive rewards, but about growing awareness, sincerity, and connection. This perspective allows faith to breathe, adapt, and endure through every stage of life. When faith is understood as a journey, patience replaces frustration, reflection replaces rigidity, and growth replaces fear. The path may not always be straight or easy, but it is meaningful. Each step, even the difficult ones, contributes to deeper understanding and stronger conviction. As we reach the end of this reflection, one truth becomes clear. Faith is not built on a single argument, a single feeling, or a single moment of certainty. It is built through understanding, humility, and sincere reflection. When we understand that God is uncreated, we free our minds from forcing the Creator into the limits of creation. When we accept the limits of human perception, we realize that reality is far greater than what our senses can capture. When we observe creation, we see that order, purpose, and meaning do not arise from nothing, but point toward an intentional source. We learn that God is not known through sight alone, but through signs woven into our lives, guidance in confusion, peace in hardship, and strength in weakness. We discover that the heart has its own vision, recognizing truths the eyes cannot see, sensing meaning where appearances fall silent. And finally, we come to understand that faith is not a rigid formula demanding instant certainty, but a lifelong journey that unfolds step by step, shaped by questions, patience, struggle, and growth. Together, these reflections remind us that belief is not blind, nor is it forced. It is an invitation to think deeply, to reflect honestly, and to listen not only with the mind, but with the heart. When a person approaches faith with sincerity rather than arrogance, with humility rather than demands, the path becomes clearer. Answers may not arrive all at once, but understanding grows, certainty settles, and peace takes root. In the end, faith is not about seeing everything. It is about trusting what has been consistently recognized. It is about allowing the signs around us and within us to guide us toward truth. And when the heart is open, it recognizes what the eyes alone never could. That existence is not random, that meaning is real, and that behind it all stands a wisdom greater than ourselves.